Beneath the sidewalks we walk every day, beneath the stores, the offices, the parking lots and crosswalks of our modern cities, lies a forgotten world, one constructed with stone and intention, and then swallowed by an event no one wrote about. For generations, this buried world has been dismissed as a quirk of old construction, a strange but harmless historical oddity. But as we sift through the photographs, the maps, the architectural remains, and the combined clues scattered across continents, a different picture begins to emerge. One that challenges everything we think we know about the recent past. This is not ancient history. This is not mythology. This is not a story from 5,000 years ago. This is something that appears to have happened between the late 1700s and early 1800s, well within the modern era. And today, we're going to take a closer look, not at one city, but at two cities, Seattle and Kansas City, whose buried architecture and strange geological anomalies tell a story of a forgotten disaster. A disaster so large, so complex, and so region-specific that it appears to have reshaped entire landscapes in dramatically different ways. Before we compare their stories, we must first understand the phenomenon itself. Buried cities. Not ancient ruins, not the remnants of lost empires, but American cities less than 200 years old, buried up to their second floors. Let's begin in a place where the evidence is impossible to ignore: Seattle. The strangeness of old Seattle. Imagine the Seattle of the 1890s, not the tech hub it is today, not a city of skyscrapers and cranes, but a city still growing, still defining itself. Yet even then, the streets were not what they appeared. Entire blocks were already standing on top of older ground levels. Certain basements were clearly never meant to be basements. Windows were half buried. Doorways ended in dirt. If you've ever taken the modern Seattle Underground tour, you've walked beneath the present-day sidewalks and stood inside what used to be ground-level storefronts. The guide may have explained that the streets were raised after the Great Seattle Fire of 1889 to prevent flooding and improve sanitation. But here's the problem. The photos show something entirely different. Archive images reveal buildings standing at the bottom of massive walls of earth, walls that look like cliffs, sometimes 20 to 30 feet high. They show houses awkwardly perched on top of uneven land formations. They show workers not using simple shovels, but high-pressure water cannons, the kind used to melt dense, frozen earth in Alaska's gold mining era. Why use water cannons to remove soil? Why would normal dirt need to be melted? Unless it wasn't normal dirt, unless the soil was partially frozen, unless Seattle wasn't just rebuilt, it was excavated. The ice theory begins to form. To understand the ice theory, we have to imagine a catastrophe modern science has never officially recorded: an ice tsunami. Not a wall of pure water, but a violent surge of freezing mud, glacial debris, shattered ice sheets, and ocean sediment hurled at the coast with unstoppable momentum. Picture this. A freezing wall of earth and ice slams ashore, not slowly like a glacier, not gently like sediment, but violently, like a frozen tidal wave. It buries everything in its path under layers of icy mud. It creates unnatural cliffs. It compresses sediment into rock-hard formations. And when temperatures stabilize, the mud freezes solid into a thick, glacial-like mass. Years later, settlers arrive. They find a landscape that makes no sense. A ground level that looks frozen in time. A city half buried in dense, permafrost-like soil. So they do the only thing they can. They melt it. This explains the use of hydraulic monitors, the need for water pressure, the glacial description in official documents, the strange frozen earth compositions, the massive amount of soil needing removal. It even explains how seemingly new cities had buried lower floors. They weren't built underground. They were buried by something that froze around them. As wild as this theory sounds, the evidence, from the soil composition to the excavation methods, fits surprisingly well. But just when this theory seems airtight, we hit the biggest obstacle: Kansas City. Kansas City, the contradiction. Kansas City sits in the very heart of the United States, far from the ocean, far from any possible tsunami. At an elevation of more than 880 feet above sea level, it is untouchable by coastal disasters. And yet, Kansas City shows the same buried architecture, the same window lines below soil, the same partially submerged buildings, the same layers of earth piled up against stone walls. But the soil is different, not frozen, not dense, not glacial. It is loose, dry, powdery, dune-like. The earliest photos of Kansas City look like images from a desert excavation. The land rolls in soft waves. Workers stand beside massive cuts of drifting earth. Houses poke out from slopes like shipwrecks in sand. This isn't water damage. This isn't ice. This isn't flooding. This is wind. A continental-scale sandstorm. Not like the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. Much bigger, much earlier, much more catastrophic. Something stripped the land bare and redeposited it. Deeply, massively, suddenly. Buildings weren't crushed, they were buried. Not violently, but gradually. Smothered by wind-blown soil over years or even decades. This solves one mystery, but creates another. Why did one part of America freeze, while another part suffocated under miles of drifting dirt? The only answer that makes sense is that these weren't separate events. They were symptoms of something global. A world out of balance. To understand this, imagine the world thrown into extreme instability. Ocean currents disrupted, jet streams distorted, temperatures swinging wildly, storm systems intensifying, dust lifted into the sky, ice forming where it shouldn't, rain disappearing from interior continents, cold flooding into coastal zones. It sounds apocalyptic. It sounds impossible. But the period from 1650 to 1850 did in fact include the Little Ice Age, a time when climate patterns worldwide became unpredictable. Europe froze. America experienced bizarre winters. Volcanoes erupted. Harvests failed. Rivers iced over. Now imagine if the Little Ice Age wasn't just a gentle, cool period, but the aftershock of something bigger. Something like a volcanic super eruption, a meteor impact, a solar event, a rapid shift in Earth's rotation, a sudden atmospheric collapse, a global dust injection event, something that could blanket parts of the world in ice while turning other parts into deserts. In such a scenario, Seattle's coast could be hit by frozen slurry. Kansas City could be swallowed by dust storms. Europe could freeze. China could flood. Africa could face drought. South America could see both extremes. Different symptoms, same underlying cause. A global reset. Not the end of humanity, but the end of stability. The excavation era. How they hid the evidence. When the climate stabilized again in the 1800s, cities began to rebuild. But they weren't starting fresh. They were cleaning up the buried remnants of a world that had already existed. The photographic record shows massive earth removal, temporary rail lines, steam shovels the size of buildings, endless trains hauling dirt, water cannons carving into cliffs, barges dumping soil into the ocean. This was not minor urban planning. This was reconstruction on a monumental scale. Seattle's hills reduced, Kansas City's dunes removed, streets lifted, basements rebranded as first floors. Architectural scars covered up, and gradually the story faded. Governments told simpler versions, engineers gave practical explanations, historians repeated them. And the truth slipped beneath the surface. Literally. The architecture that shouldn't exist. When you walk through older American cities, something begins to feel off, even if you can't explain it at first. The deeper your curiosity grows, the more the architecture itself seems to whisper secrets. Look at the way 19th century buildings are constructed. Tall, ornate windows, massive stone arches, decorative lintels, symmetrical patterns, extravagant craftsmanship. You see these features even on the levels buried below ground. Why would anyone decorate a basement with the same beauty and cost as the main floor? Why carve stonework if no one would ever see it? Why build windows facing dirt? The only logical explanation is that these were never meant to be basements. They were intended to be ground-level floors, which means the ground rose, or the city sank, or the world changed around the buildings. And if the world changed once, it could happen again. That realization is what makes this mystery feel so eerily relevant. Because buried cities aren't ruins from an ancient era. They're barely older than the light bulb. The questions we are not supposed to ask. The moment you start questioning buried architecture, more questions arise. Why do building codes from the 1800s mention re-exposing lower floors? Why were early photographs carefully staged to hide the depth of soil? Why do historical maps show street levels changing abruptly? Why are official explanations so vague, so repetitive, and so thin? Why did multiple cities all perform massive earth removals at the same time? Why do some cities have multiple original ground levels? Each official explanation works only for one city. None of them explain why the same phenomenon happened everywhere. When cities across a continent all show signs of the same trauma, the cause cannot be local. It must be global. But admitting that would rewrite recent history. It would require acknowledging that the past 300 years weren't calm and stable, but chaotic and catastrophic. And that's not a narrative most institutions want to open the door to. It destabilizes the historical timeline. It complicates the scientific story. It forces uncomfortable conversations. So instead of rethinking the past, the world simply razed the streets and moved on. Witnesses we didn't listen to. Throughout the 19th century, newspapers, diaries, and explorers' journals recorded strange phenomena, now mostly forgotten. darkened skies for months, unseasonably cold summers, mass crop failures, dust that covered entire towns, animal migrations, unexplainable drownings and coastal die-offs, massive river floods in odd locations, thunder that lasted for hours, snow falling in June, people describing the air as thick. Individually, these events were brushed off. Together, they form a mosaic of instability, a world in flux, a climate system teetering on the edge, a planet recovering from something big. Seattle's frozen-style sediment, Kansas City's desert-like dunes, Europe's brutal winters, China's mega floods, Africa's droughts, South America's temperature whiplashes, different symptoms, same disease. This was not a single disaster. This was a planetary reset ripple. Why we forgot. People often imagine conspiracies when history goes silent, but the truth is usually more human. When you survive a catastrophe, you don't declare it to the world. You rebuild, you repair, you focus on the present, not the past. Imagine the generation after a global environmental collapse. They are short on food, short on resources, short on labor, short on time. Their priority is survival, not record-keeping. Of course, they didn't document every detail. Of course, they didn't preserve buried architecture. Of course, they didn't analyze the soil like modern geologists would. They dug out what they could. They abandoned what they couldn't. They rebuilt over the scars. And gradually, the story faded. Then the next generation inherited a rebuilt world and assumed it had always been that way. That's how forgetting works. It's not intentional. It's a side effect of moving forward. The global pattern. Let's zoom out and look at the larger world. In Europe, cities like Paris, Hamburg, Prague, Dublin, Venice, and St. Petersburg all have buried floors, sunken windows, raised streets, and mysteriously deep foundations. In Asia, buried temples in India, sunken homes in China, half-buried markets in Turkey. In South America, colonial buildings in Chile and Argentina with doors now below sidewalk level. In Australia, Old Melbourne and Sydney with street-level changes that defy logic. Everywhere the same pattern repeats, a global anthology of buried architecture. We're supposed to believe all of these happened for local reasons? It's statistically impossible. It is far more likely that the entire world experienced upheaval, but each region suffered differently depending on geography. Coastal, frozen sludge events. Continental, dust burial. Forest regions, tree die-offs and erosion mountain regions. Landslides and sediment drifts, river regions. Sand silt infilling volcanic regions. Ashfall, a global trigger. Regional consequences. Exactly how modern climate disasters behave. Only on a much bigger scale. The cosmic possibility. Whenever scientists discuss global environmental resets, one explanation always enters the conversation. A cosmic impact, not necessarily a dinosaur killer asteroid. Even a smaller object, one exploding in the atmosphere, could disrupt global climate for decades. We already know this because the Tunguska event, 1908, flattened 800 square miles. The Chelyabinsk meteor, 2013, injured more than 1,000 people. The Younger Dryas impact theory links a cosmic strike to massive climate chaos. If such an event happened around the 1700s or 1800s, dust would fill the atmosphere, temperatures would plunge, jet streams would warp, oceans would surge, volcanoes could be triggered secondarily. It would not destroy civilization, but it would destabilize it. Coasts could freeze, inlands could turn to deserts, rainfall could stop, wildfires could rage, rivers could dry, glacial fragments could redistribute, and cities could be buried in ice or sand. Sound familiar? It perfectly matches the data. So, what really happened? Here is the most coherent scenario based on the evidence. 1. A cosmic or volcanic event around 1750 to 1810 destabilizes Earth's climate. 2. Ice surges and coastal slurry bury western coastal regions, like Seattle. 3. Atmospheric drought and megastorms bury interior regions, like Kansas City. 4. Cities worldwide are partially engulfed. 5. Survivors rebuild during the 1800s, removing unimaginable volumes of earth. 6. Streets are razed, buildings are dug out, and the buried floors become basements. 7. Over 3 to 5 generations, the story of the disaster fades. 8. By the time modern documentation begins, the event has already been forgotten. This explains the buried buildings, the raised streets, the conflicting soil types, the simultaneous global pattern, the lack of detailed records, the sudden surge in 19th century excavation, the architectural contradictions. Everything finally makes sense when we treat the phenomenon as global, not local. Why this matters today? This isn't just about history. If a global reset happened 200 years ago, it means Earth's climate can change much faster than we think. Natural disasters can strike on continental scales. Civilizations can be buried without being destroyed. Entire generations can forget life-changing events. Historical timelines might be far less stable than assumed. Most importantly, the world we live in is not as permanent as we imagine. We've built our civilization on the assumption that the past was steady. But what if the past wasn't steady at all? What if sudden global upheaval is part of Earth's natural rhythm? What if we are overdue for another reset? These are uncomfortable questions, but they become necessary once we acknowledge that buried cities exist, and exist everywhere. The invitation to question everything. The greatest secrets aren't hidden in archives. They're hiding in architecture, in foundations, in sub-basements, in uneven sidewalks, in stone archways buried in dirt, in windows that never should have looked into soil. Signs of a forgotten world. A world not thousands of years ago, but just a handful of generations behind us. A world whose final chapter was erased not by conspiracy, but by survival. Now the question becomes, are we brave enough to reopen that chapter? Are we willing to question the timeline? Are we willing to accept that our version of history might be incomplete? Because once you realize buried cities are real, you start seeing them everywhere. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. The final message. If this investigation made you think, if it challenged your assumptions, if it opened even a small window into a forgotten past, then stay with this channel. Because this is only the beginning. There are more buried cities to uncover, more mysteries to unravel, More hidden chapters to bring back into the light. Like the video. Subscribe for more deep investigations. And share it with someone who's ready to look beneath the surface. History isn't written only in books. Sometimes it's written in dirt. And we're finally starting to read it again.